Hi. If you're wondering what the difference between different types of lipids are, say there are triglycerides, fats, saturated, unsaturated, omega 3, and omega 6, let us explore a bit more in detail about the different types of lipids. Now, lipids are a class of organic compounds that are majorly composed of carbon and hydrogen atoms, but there are also oxygen atoms. Comparatively lesser in number, but oxygen atoms are present in a smaller quantity. And these are insoluble in water and soluble only in organic solvents. Generally, lipids are hydrophobic in nature, but there are certain classes of lipids, say phospholipids, which are amphipathic or amphiphilic in nature, meaning they have both hydrophobic parts and hydrophilic parts, but generally lipids are hydrophobic in nature. Now, there are multiple ways to classify lipids based on their structure, based on their function, but in order to keep it very simple, lipids can be classified into simple, these are also known as homolipids, or compound or heterolipids, and then there are derived lipids. Let's see how and on what basis lipids are classified in this manner. Starting with the simple lipids, they have fatty acid molecules bonded to alcohol molecules. No other additional groups, no other prosthetic groups, just fatty acids with an alcohol. Simple lipids are majorly of two types, waxes and triglycerides. Triglycerides are very, very important because they are the major storage forms of energy. This includes all the animal-based fats and plant-based oils. Supposing we are ingesting excess amount of carbohydrates, they can be converted to triglycerides and stored as fat droplets in the adipocytes. And all of the plant oils also come under the triglycerides category. Triglycerides are made up of a glycerol backbone bonded to 3 fatty acid molecules. This is simply put, this is the structure of a triglyceride. This fatty acid, this can either be a saturated fatty acid or it can be an unsaturated fatty acid. And in some cases, it can be a mixture of different types of fatty acids. Based on the type of fatty acid, triglycerides can either be liquid at room temperature or solid at room temperature. All you have to remember when it comes to triglycerides is that it has a glycerol backbone attached to 3 fatty acid molecules. So basically, a glycerol molecule reacts with fatty acid molecules, undergoes esterification process with the elimination or with the dehydration of 3 water molecules. A molecule of triglyceride is formed. So basically, they are formed through the process of dehydration synthesis. Right? Now, coming to the waxes, they are pretty much similar to triglycerides. The difference is that here there is one long chain fatty acid molecule bonded to one long chain alcohol, which is not glycerol. So that is the difference between waxes and triglycerides. And waxes have a higher melting point, that's why they are very solid at room temperature. This includes carnauba wax, which is the wax taken from the Brazilian palm tree, and then there is lanolin, which is taken from sheep's wool and used in creams and ointments, and then beeswax and any waxy substance that is produced on the surface of the leaves of plants. All these come under the waxes category. Moving on to the compound lipids, they also have a fatty acid. They also have like 1 or 2 fatty acid molecule. They have an alcohol group. Then there is an additional prosthetic group that is present. The prosthetic group can be anything. It can be phosphate in the case of phospholipids. It can be sugar residues. It can be anything. So along with the fatty acid molecule and alcohol, there is a prosthetic group. Now, compound lipids based on the type of prosthetic group can be divided into phospholipids, glycolipids, and lipoproteins. As the name suggests, phospholipids have an alcohol backbone with 2 fatty acid molecules, and then there is a phosphate group that is present. Now, phospholipids can be divided into glycerophospholipids, which have a glycerol backbone, and sphingophospholipids, which has sphingosine alcohol as its backbone. This glycerophospholipids includes lecithin, cephalin, cardiolipin, phosphatidylcholine. This one has a choline molecule along with the fatty acid alcohol and the phosphate group. So based on the porosity group that is present, phospholipids can be classified into these two types. Ceramides are a good example of sphingospholipids. Now talking about phospholipids, as I said, they are amphipathic molecules, meaning they have both hydrophobic and hydrophilic parts. So in the structure of a cell membrane, this is the hydrophilic head containing the phosphate group, and then there is the hydrophobic fatty acid chain. So the hydrophilic head forms the outer layer of the cell membrane. This is the bilayer of the cell membrane. The hydrophobic part forms the inner part of the cell membrane. This might not be looking very good, but all you have to remember is hydrophilic part, the part that can interact with water, is on the outer side, and the part that cannot interact with water, hydrophobic tails, are on the inner side. So this is how bilayers are formed when it comes to cell membranes. So that's why phospholipids play a very important role in the structure of cell membranes. Moving on to glycolipids, as the name suggests, there is alcohol, there is fatty acid, and then there are sugar residues that are present. Cerebrocytes and gangliosides are important examples of glycolipids. Lipoproteins, as we all know, are of two types, high density lipoprotein and low density lipoprotein. So these are made of cholesterol esters, triglycerides, and apolipoproteins. Moving on to the derived lipids. These are formed when simple and complex lipids combine and then undergo hydrolysis. They have a ring structure, they have an isoprenoid structure, and derived lipids includes fatty acids, cholesterol, terpenes, carotenoids, testosterone, and other hormones as well. So this is a simple way in which lipids can be classified into different groups. Once you understand this, it will be much more easier to understand about the formation of triglycerides and the role of phospholipids and the different types of fatty acids. Now fatty acids can be saturated, unsaturated based on the presence or absence of double bonds. So let us look into these a bit more in detail. Thank you.